Hey everyone, welcome back to BrowncoatNerd. I am extremely excited to bring this video to you. I know most of you guys are going, oh my god, dude, come on, stop putting out CETME L videos. This is a particular one that I never thought I would have the opportunity to handle in person, let alone own one myself. What we have here is the Marcolmar built CETME LVS. It is actually, right now at least, is the most limited model that Marcolmar has put out. Their numbers on some of their different models have kind of changed. So your standard L, Marcolmar, and I've got this statistic directly from Marcolmar. They said they're going to be building between 5 to 8,000 of the standard L when they're all done. They initially had purchased 10,000 parts kits from Spain. And in those 10,000 parts kits, they also had 140 standard LV kits. Now, those have a different scope mount. Those actually have an iron sight fixed to the gun permanently. And that uses an Enosis scope. And they also had a night vision scope they used on those, which looks like a stubby telescope. It's freaking huge. But they got 140 parts kits of the LV. Now, I did watch a video of Dave Bain, the owner of Marcolmar, test firing the very first production LV. And he either says in the video, or it's in the description, or it's in the title, it's somewhere in that video, they say that they're going to be making 145. Their website says they'll be making 140. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Those ones don't even come with a scope, since they have the fixed iron sight already on it in the back. The LC, which is the collapsible stock version, those ones, they originally said they'd be putting out 140, but as of now, they have actually put out around 150. Those are being listed as sold out on their website. I think those extra 10 were basically, because you can send in your CETME L parts kits to Marcolmar, and they will build it for you. So I know the newest number was around 650. It was about a month or two back. I think it was Apex. I might be misspeaking here, but some big distributor online had gotten a bunch of the LC kits and was offering those. I have no clue how many they got. I can't remember the price. It was pretty steep. So I could see that 650 number possibly going up even more, but not much, because those aren't a very common parts kit. And then the LVS that we have here, originally they said they'd be making 150. And this particular one came out of the very last batch that Marcolmar was spitting out, at least for now, or at least until they get any more scopes if they can. But the current production actually stopped at 130. So those are actually fewer than they were originally planning on building. I know the standard LV was actually the original smallest number in specific models they were making, but right now it is actually the LVS. And the only reason that Marcolmar put out 130, or let's say we're going to put out 150 of these, it is not because they only had 150 LVS parts kits. The LC is made from an LC parts kit. The standard LV is made from an LV parts kit. This LVS is actually made from a standard L kit. These are actually clones. The reason they were limited to 150 is because that's all the SUSAT scopes they could get their hands on, at least ones that were in decent condition. So that might come as a shock to some of you. Oh, my cables are in the freaking picture again. But these are technically, I guess you could say, clones built off of standard L kits. Now, what is the difference between the LVS and your standard L? Well, the LVS does have, it's not a heavy barrel, it's more of a medium profile barrel. And then obviously you have the SA80 style rail on here with the SUSAT scope. And like I said, the LVS did come with a scope compared to the LV. And also I should say what LVS stands for. So V stands for visor, which is sight, and then the S designation stands for SUSAT for the scope here, which stands for Sight Unit Small Arms Trulux. Now these are British-made scopes. Most people are used to seeing these on the SA-80 series of British bullpup rifles. And there are a handful of countries that use them on their rifles as well. I know CETME also did mount a few of these to their Amili light machine guns. So they're not the most common scope in the world. So these were pretty much solely limited due to the number of quality SUSAT scopes that Marcolmar could get their hands on, which to me is like the freaking coolest, awesome thing about this. So why did they go from 150 to 130? I specifically asked the owner about that. I was like, so what is the number here? Because I'm kind of seeing two different numbers. And he said they ended up selling about 20 of the SUSAT scopes to collectors. So that shortened their ultimate number of LVSs they're going to put out, which really made me wonder what these are going for. I looked around and I cannot find a listing for any real SUSAT scope, so I have no clue what the price of the scope alone would be. I did come across a whole bunch of airsoft scopes. And those range anywhere from price from like $80 to close to $400. So these aren't the most common scope out there. Now the standard LV was used by the Army specifically, and then the LVS that we have here was used specifically not just by the Marines, but the Marine Special Forces. So they were not widely issued, so they're pretty limited to begin with, even in the Spanish Army. Now, like I said, this was issued to the Marines, which is actually part of the Navy, which brings me to one thing I will point out, and that is what I believe actually technically is Marcolmar does a great job on copying all the roll marks and everything on these. So for your standard L, everything is correct other than right here where it says CETME L. On the original CETMEs, it would just simply say CETME. It would not also have the L designation. You might also notice that this says LV and not LVS. That is correct. The LVSs would just simply be marked LV. ET is what all the Army rifles would have on them. Now, since this would have been used by the Navy, I do believe that mark actually technically should be FN. I forget what that stands for, but that was the mark that the Navy used. Now, why didn't Marcolmar not use that? I didn't ask the owner. I've bugged him with so many questions. I feel bad bothering him with those. So I'm just going to assume that they may have done this not to avoid any possible issues they might get from Fabrique Nationale of Belgium. I don't know how another gun company would feel about another gun company putting their, not necessarily logo, but their initials. I mean, everyone knows Fabrique Nationale as FN. So I don't know if that might have had something to do with it, and rather than just leaving it blank, they went ahead and put the ET stamping on there. Honestly, I'm not 100% positive. But while we got it flipped over to this side, we can see that the Marcolmar LVSs did make it up into the 1600 serial number range. Like I said, this one came out of the very last batch that Marcolmar had spat out. Now then, Britain is retiring more and more of their SUSAT scopes. That's part of the reason they're so limited. Britain apparently doesn't really like releasing military equipment that is still in use, even though, from my understanding, these are in very limited use. But in the future, we might see a flood of these scopes come into the U.S. So would that mean Marcolmar might pick up production of the LVS again? Maybe. These aren't... A lot of people aren't willing to shell out the money for these. These are not cheap. It's like twice as much as your standard L. But to me, I think I was getting ready to get to this point, but completely got sidetracked. That is the coolest thing about this gun. There's not many of these SUSAT scopes in the U.S. And the people that do have them It's like, what are you putting it on? As far as I know, there are no SA80 semi-automatics in the U.S. There might be a few fully automatics here that are, people that have the proper paperwork own. Not very many. So the fact that with purchasing this, not only do I finally get my hands on a SUSAT scope, but I actually have a gun that I can shoot it on, which, tons and tons of bonus points right there, to me at least. So that just has me very, very excited. So like I said, the LVS was issued to the Spanish Marine Special Forces, which is, oh boy, Unidad de Operaciones Especiales. I don't think I said a single word there correct. I apologize. And like I said, the LVS was made from a standard L kit. Marcolmar did add the medium profile barrel. Now, they used to offer this barrel on their website. For anyone that was wanting to buy an L, you could add it onto your build for a small additional price. Or if you're building your own L, you could go ahead and buy the medium profile barrel from them. Now, they no longer offer that barrel. They said there just was not enough interest for them to sell the barrel on its own. So I think once they were done building these and they sold off the last of those barrels, they were just kind of done with them. And while we're talking about the barrels, it is worth noting that they are a 1-in-7 twist, which is how the original CETME L or LVS barrels would have been. They are not chrome lined. The original ones were chrome lined. That's one of the complaints I've seen about quality control was the quality of the chrome lining on the original L's. The original L's were just riddled with quality control issues, which is one of the nice things also about owning the Marcolmars. They've upgraded them and gotten rid of all those quality control issues. So this is not chrome lined, but it does have a nitride finish, so it's got a very good finish on it, and it is cold hammer forged, if I did not already mention that. These barrels are also made by RCM, or Rim Country Manufacturing. I kind of looked them up and was looking at their website. It looks like they kind of specialize in making HK components and barrels. Looks like they also make their own bolt actions for different rifles. So yeah, that's who makes the barrels. Another thing I see a lot of people talk about is the confusion. And while we're on the barrels real quick, I will be making a video on all three of the different barrels that the CETME L came with, because I realized I've got all three here. Also, a correction I want to make, I was wrong. I have no issue admitting when I'm wrong. I do feel really stupid about it. But when I did the video on let me get her out, the collapsible stock LC here, I mentioned how I've seen a few places list this as having a heavy barrel, and they were incorrect. And my assumption on that, everywhere I read on this LC, I never saw anyone talk about how the barrel was manufactured differently other than being short. This is actually just a barrel extension. I was assuming that they were looking at this thicker barrel extension compared to your standard L, and I was assuming that they were assuming that that was a heavy profile barrel. And I was like, oh no, that's just the barrel extension. So in my video for the LC, I point that out. However, when I was taking my Madison Firearms handguard off of my LC after making the video on that, I also had just got this, and I had taken this cover off, because I noticed the front here, the profile is pretty much the same as my L, and I was like, wait, I thought these had a thicker barrel. So I took the handguard off, and the thickness underneath this guy and the LC was the same. And I was kind of like, oh man, what's going on here? Did I get ripped off? And my standard L has had the first gen handguard on it forever. I've got some videos on these as well. These are very brittle. I do not like taking these off of the L and switching them around anymore. That's what I did with my first one, and I chipped off a little corner here, and that sucked. So I had to get the other one before Marcolmar ran out. Another thing worth mentioning, Marcolmar has recently found a box in their warehouse that was mislabeled by the Spanish shippers when they got all their parts kits. They were sold out of the handguards. They did have 200. And then they found a box that was labeled grips, I think they said. And when they opened it up, they discovered it was actually the first gen handguards. So I don't know how many more they got. But as of right now, the first gen handguards are once again available on their website. And yes, I'm kind of thinking about getting another one. I don't know why. But anyways, so I finally very gingerly took that first gen handguard off of my L because I wanted to put the Madison Firearm handguard on there, which I said I do have a video on, and that's this handguard here. But when I did that, I discovered that the barrel profile on the standard L underneath the handguard is much thinner than what it is on the LVS, as well as my LC. So, long story long, the LC does have not necessarily, once again, not necessarily a heavy profile barrel, but a medium profile barrel with that barrel extension on there. So I was wrong. The LC does indeed have a thicker barrel than the standard L. So, that long explanation out of the way. Another thing I see brought up a whole bunch is why the heck does the LVS have a front sight post on it still? Like, the LC can't take a bayonet. CETME had just milled off the bayonet lug. A lot of the people, rightfully would assume that they should have just milled off this front sight post. Plus, this is a heavy, heavy girl with that medium profile barrel and the scope on there. So, any little bit of weight that can come off this would be nice. Also, it is worth pointing out that the front sight post, this one has been upgraded. Marcolmar normally taps these out and puts in a better front sight post. I know on the LCs, they did not do that, simply because the rarity of the number. So that's your original front sight post. Lighting is horrible, I apologize. And that is the thinnest size of front sight post. I do believe Marcolmar said that there was like 5 different sizes, and pretty much the smallest one was only the usable size. The other ones were just ridiculously wide. So it was kind of interesting that Marcolmar bothered to go ahead and retap this and put in a better one. I was kind of fully expecting to find the original one in there, but like one of the fat posts, since they would assume none of us are going to be using it. But there actually is a reason why CETME did not mill off this front sight post. Originally, I'd come across a few images online of what was actually a removable rear sight for the LVS. So I was pretty shocked to see that. And then when I purchased this, I finally bothered to read the LVS section because now I own one. And in there, Marcolmar mentions that they are actually planning on making the removable rear sight, and that if you're interested, to let them know, and they will put you on a waiting list. And if there's enough interest in it, they would go ahead and go forward with that production. Well, now that they're at the end of production, they've sold out all of the LVSs they have. I reached out to the owner. I was kind of curious where they were on that removable rear sight. Also, I was very interested in getting one myself. And he got back with me and he said, well, we finally got our hands on one of the original rear sights. And it turns out they're a little bit more complicated than we originally assumed, which is kind of a bummer. He didn't say that they definitely wouldn't make one. He simply left it with, we'll see. So that's a little heartbreaking because that does not sound good. So if you own an LVS and you would like a removable rear sight, email Marcolmar and let them know, I want my freaking rear sight. Honestly, at this point, if it's just too complicated, would be too expensive to produce, I would be okay with the dumbed down version. Something that looks like the original but might not be a 100% copy. I think along with the other 130 LVS owners, will be perfectly fine with getting something close. That's better than nothing at all. Also, it's worth mentioning that the owner of Marcolmar, Dave, did take one of these out of the last batch for himself. And if you go to their Facebook page, he does have an image of it up there. He put on a custom Cerakote job. He had them Cerakote it in the camo pattern that the Spanish military was using at the time that they were using these. And that thing is freaking beautiful. It really is absolutely gorgeous. But as far as I know, other than that one, his own personal one, all of these came out in the standard Spanish green that you see here. Let's see, where am I at on my notes? Okay, so before I get into the scope stuff, let's go over what you get when you get one of these. So first of all, obviously, you do get the SUSAT scope, along with the little orange styrofoam box that they originally came in. The scope, I assumed that the scope would be in here when I ordered it, but when it showed up at my FFL, thank you Centerfire of Olathe, when it showed up at Centerfire, the scope actually was already on there. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then reading in the owner's manual, they do say that they actually sight these scopes in to your rifle at Marcolmar. And if you notice, this is marked LV with the serial number of this rifle. Another fun thing about Centerfire when I went to go pick this up, I was kind of curious what they would say about it because, I mean, look at the freaking thing. I unzipped it and I was looking at it, trying to wipe away the drool from my chin. And there's another guy in there. I think he's like picking up a Taurus 1911 or something. But I noticed that he's kind of like, eyeballing the heck out of this. And I finally was like, man, that thing looks freaking awesome. And I was just kind of like giggly schoolgirl. I was like, I know, right? And I was like, it looks like something that came out of G.I. Joe. You guys have heard me say that before. And the guy behind the counter just started laughing and looked at the other dude behind the counter. And he looked at me and he goes, that is literally what I said when I opened that up. So, thought that's funny. Anyway, so you'll get the box. You get the scope. You do get a sight adjustment tool. However, it is not the original one. As you can see, it has the Marcolmar logo on there. You get that guy. Oh, I did not bring that out here. You do get the soft, kind of modern tactical case that all the Gen 2 CETME LVs are coming in. You obviously get that as well. You get the Marcolmar branded cable lock. You can get a little sample bottle of Slip 2000. Whenever I get these sample bottles, I always go ahead and use it on the gun it came with, especially for break-in. And then when I'm out, I just use whatever I have. I'm not real picky about oil. I'll use, Lucas or Rim Oil or hops or CLP. I'm not super picky, but I do try to kind of go through these. One, it's free, it's in there. And also, just in case they specifically chose that for the break-in period, which that probably never is the case. But you get that little sample bottle. You get your warranty card to fill out, which I've never sent any of those in. I'm not terribly concerned about it. Marcolmar, hands down, has like the most amazing customer control. Good Lord. What am I trying to say? They're really good with the customers. I've never had an issue getting a hold of them, getting feedback from them. They're always very friendly. If you call them up, you're probably going to end up talking to the owner, or most likely his wife, Mary, and she is extremely nice. I've chatted with her several times. And I don't want you to think I'm having lots of problems because I've chatted with them several times. It was just with lots of little questions on getting stuff. I've ordered extra furniture from them. I had the 2 first-gen handguards I've ordered. So those were my dealings with them. I've had 0 warranty issues that I've had to call them up and be like, hey, this broke. How do I go about fixing it? I haven't had to deal with that. But I've seen not a lot, but a handful, if that, people online talking about how, I think it's the extractor spring that's kind of like the weakest point on this, where they're having issues, contacting Marcolmar, and we're just blown away by how helpful they were. Oh, my throat's going dry. I'm not getting choked up. Time for another Dr. Pepper break. Not sponsored. Wish I was. That'd be cool. Sponsored by Dr. Pepper. Another flyer this comes with, which is kind of annoying because clearly Demolition Ranch did not read this. This goes over the break-in procedures and how you shouldn't use weaker 223 or 5.56 ammo. That for the break-in you do want to use, what does it say, 62 grain? Yeah. 62 grain. Quality 62 grain. Not PMC 55 grain, which is the majority of the ammo that Demo Ranch used in shooting that. Why do I know that? Because I reached out to the owner of Marcolmar when I saw that video. Like, I came across that video within hours of it being released. Got excited. I thought it was clickbait. The title of it, The Worst Gun I've Ever Owned. Was really disappointed. And I normally kind of defend Demo Ranch. A lot of people knock him, but I'm like, it's kind of like the Mythbusters. I don't know if that's a fair comparison of, gun shooting videos. You're not going to learn any history about the guns. You're not going to learn anything useful about the guns. It's just a bunch of stupid crap, But sometimes stupid crap can be entertaining. I have since unsubscribed. It pissed me off because Marcolmar is a small family-run business. And like I said, they have amazing customer support. That's the word I was looking for. They have amazing customer support. And for him, that also kind of runs his own business with all of this, t-shirts and crap that they sell, to just completely rip into a company like that without zero effort of emailing them, being like, hey, I'm having these weird issues, what's going on? Zero. Because when the owner of Marcolmar got back to me, he's like, yeah, I've never heard of this guy. Never heard from him. He just put up a video and completely trash talk us and has a ton of subscribers. And he has said that video has affected their sales. He's kind of distraught about it, which is really unfortunate. And then Marcolmar repeatedly tried to reach out to Demo Ranch. They responded back once saying, oh, well, the one that we bought it online, didn't come with the box or the owner's manual. So that's just the way it is. And it had told them what ammo it was. Because that's, I know when I was watching as well as any other CETME LV owner, we're all going, well, what ammo are you using? You're probably using 55 grain, which you do not use to break these in. Once you have them broke in, you're good to go with whatever. They're pretty reliable. Both my L was a little weird, but it's running super reliably right now. My LC hasn't even had a single hiccup through its break-in period, and it's well past its break-in period now. So, yeah, it's just kind of frustrating. And I've said this before on videos, way before Demo Ranch ever put out his videos. 99% of the complaints on these is the fact that people are having issues with ammo. And almost always, if they post something online, you see everyone going, use hotter ammo. I've never seen anyone come back and been like, yeah, I used the hotter loaded stuff and it made no difference. They either don't come back and comment at all, or most of the time they come back and they're like, thanks guys, that was extremely helpful. I almost got rid of this. I'm super happy I didn't, because now it works and now it will shoot anything. They made it in bright freaking yellow, people. Like, it's the simplest freaking thing. It's just frustrating how illiterate we have become. It's right freaking here. Bright freaking yellow. It's also in the owner manual as well. Sorry, I got a little heated on that. So, and then the last thing that this comes with, and I'm probably going to get laughed at, but I don't regret doing it at all. The only thing I do regret when I purchased this, and I thought about it after I placed my order, and actually they did still have some available, but I don't know, I didn't want to bother them. I really wish I would have asked if I could get the highest serial number that they had in this batch. I.e. the last Marcolmar LVS. I kick myself in the butt so freaking hard for not doing that. And that bugged the hell out of me. So, I figured a good consolation price to myself, excuse me, Dr. Pepper's getting to me, would be to ask them to simply take out the owner's manual, hand it around the shop, and have everybody sign it. I know it's corny and cheesy, and the guys at the shop are probably laughing going, what the hell? But I honestly legit think that's freaking cool as hell. Especially resale value. Not that I'll ever sell this, but once I kick the bucket and my ungrateful grandkids decide to sell this, I'll give those little bastards a few more bucks because they've got something very unique right there. So yeah. Yeah, I did that. Like I said, I don't regret it. I think it's freaking cool. I just need to figure out where I'm going to put it. Am I going to display it? What am I going to do with it? I've got another owner's manual. This is my third CETME LV. So I've got the 1.0 owner's manual, and then I have 2.0 owner's manual. But anyways, there is that. Let me get this stuff out of the way. So on to the scope. Now, I will say, first of all, if you own one of these, or have a SUSAT scope, it is an absolute must that you go look up Armorer's Bench video on the SUSAT scope. Vic gives out a very detailed rundown of all the information on this scope. If I remember, I'll try to put a link in the description. I really suck at that though, guys. But it is a very, very good in-depth video, and it goes over the two different mounts on these, which is definitely worth pointing out. When I actually placed this order, after watching Armorer's Bench video, I was under the assumption that technically this was the wrong mount, or this is the wrong rail, and this was the wrong mount for the LVS. Because the majority of the LVSs, and from my understanding, every country that did use the SUSAT scope outside of Great Britain, use what is called the molar or commercial mount. It's a rail similar to this, but it's a slightly different size. And the mount itself, the controls are set up differently. It's much easier to adjust the elevation and the windage, specifically the windage. And those just aren't very common. Because Vic's talking about how I think he'd only seen a dozen or 24 of them floating around. Another fun note, he also mentions about how he just got done shipping 150 of them to the US. Marcolmar, in their advertisement for this, they mentioned that they are when they ordered these scopes, 150 of them, it was the largest single importation of SUSAT scopes into the US. So I'm pretty sure all of these have been touched by old Vic on that Armorer's Bench video. So definitely go check that out. A lot of good information. Reading the owner's manual, according to Marcolmar, yes, the majority of the LVSs, or at least the later ones, did use the molar or commercial mount. However, they said, I can't remember if they said they came across a few. I think they bought all the technical data from Spain when they purchased these 10,000 parts kits. So they knew, how to make the profile of the barrel. And they may have come across this information in that technical data. But apparently, early on in the LVS production, they did use the... hold on. Okay. I thought I heard water dropping, and my little chihuahuas had a real issue with peeing in the hallway, so I just had to go check real quick. But apparently early on in the LVS production, they did use the SA80 style rail along with the SA80 mount, which, let's see here, the scope and mount, both of these together, is the L1 to A1. If you're talking about just the scope alone, that is the L9A1. And whether you're using the molar mount or the SA80 mount, the scope itself is the exact same. There's no difference. The only change is in the mount. And, of course, the rail. Now, Vic has got a SA80 rail with scope and a molar mount with scope on them sitting on the desk on their own. This setup here looks like it sits ever so slightly higher than the molar mount, like maybe a millimeter. It's a very small difference. But Marcolmar did say the early LVSs did indeed use this setup. So they're not making a clone, I guess, of the most common LVS. They're making a clone of like the rarer, early, less common LVS. So either way, it is still actually correct to the LVS. So I remember when I placed this order, I'm like, oh, I'm going to have this video where I talk about how they have the removable rear sight, the heavy profile barrel. A lot of people skip over that. And the fact that this is actually just made from an L kit, and how that's wrong. Turns out I was wrong. They did actually make some of these with the SA80 mount. So that is correct, which is nice. So the SUSAT scope, in case you do not know, is a 4x optic. The range is 300 to 800 meters on your little dial back here. According to Vic on Armorer's Bench, the later models did go up to 1200 meters. And one of the interesting things about this is when you're adjusting your scope here, none of the adjustments are internal to the scope. None of them are to the scope at all. All the adjustments are to the base. So when you're adjusting the windage, you're moving that base back and forth. When you're adjusting the elevation, the back of this base goes up and down. Another thing that I've come across is these scopes are just kind of tanks. They're very indestructible, um, which is good, especially if Marcolmar doesn't make that rear sight. Although I have thought about getting one of the high quality airsoft SUSAT scope copies. This thing is such low recoil, I kind of feel like it might work, and maybe just use that, put this in the styrofoam case, and put it away for safekeeping so I don't screw it up. But at the same time, even the airsoft versions of these are freaking expensive. Of course, one of the advantages to that, if I did use it, the illumination would work. Originally, these had a little tritium vial that would light up this is just a single post sight. It's kind of a obelisk type sight. But this little dial here would basically rotate that vial up underneath the sight and would light it up. I believe it was an amber or red color. Now, obviously, the tritium does have a shelf life. Everyone mentions in these about how, the tritium in the scope doesn't work anymore because the tritium is dead. That's technically not why the tritium in the scopes work anymore. However, if the tritium was in there, it most likely would be dead. But, where did I put it? Pulling the box back out here. If you notice, this white label here is not original to the packaging. I believe this probably would be. Get that in there where there's not glare. I did not scribble that out. I'm not sure why that was scribbled out. That's how it came. And then there's nothing on the other sides. MOB5. I think I saw that over here too, yeah. This little white label was added, I think, by Vic. But it says, note, no radioactive material contained in this device. Tritium light source has been removed. And in that video on Armorer's Bench, Vic does go over how he had to remove all those tritium vials. And it was either for exportation out of Britain or importation into the US. So the tritium in these has actually been completely removed. Now, don't get excited. If you go watch that video, at the very beginning of the video, he says, I'm going to show you how to bring life back into it. His approach to it ended up failing. However, I'm going to try basically the same thing he did. He put one tritium vial in there. I feel like there's enough room to get at least 2, possibly 3. So I am going to try to do that. And I found on eBay tritium vials, the dimensions are the exact same as the ones he got, so it's probably, from the same place. And I will do a follow-up video on that, whether or not it works. And my understanding is this dial wasn't simply an on-off, but if you wanted a little illumination, you just rotate it a little bit, or a lot, depending on how much illumination you need. As you can see, these do have backup sights up here, just in case you thought the cheek weld was bad enough as it is. You do have those, very short radius. I did take this out once to shoot. As you can see, I didn't get a whole lot of rounds in there, because that's hardly marred up at all. I took this out when I had the Madison Firearms furniture on my LC. I wanted to shoot the LC with Madison handguard on there, so I could give you guys feedback for the video I did on that. And at the time, all I could find was Winchester White Box 55 grain, which isn't loaded very hot. It shot through the LC perfectly fine. That gun just chews up anything from the get-go. This guy, and also, I'd seen lots of people talk about how, you don't even need to use a higher powered stuff for break-in. I had no issue with it. I saw that a lot. And I was like, you know what? Let me just try. Because like I said, my L, I didn't really have a lot of issues. The only issues I had was fairly well after break-in. I went out with my nephew, and it's like he was cursed. It kept jamming on him, and I would take over, and it shot perfectly fine. Since that shooting, I'd also taken it out and shot a whole bunch of hot-loaded stuff, a lot of green tip, and a lot of cheap Russian steel case 223. And it ate up everything perfectly fine. So once again, Christian, I'm sorry. I think you're cursed. But the L will shoot 55 grain Winchester White Box. However, I don't think I shot any Winchester White Box until after it was broken in. It was about 1 to 2 rounds out of every mag. With this guy, it would choke up and jam up on me. To the point where I was like, I'm done. I'm just going to shoot the LC, see how hot I can get this Madison Firearm handguard. And so, didn't shoot this one a lot. I don't know if I'm even going to bother bringing you guys a first time shooting impressions video like I did for the L and LC. This is essentially just an L. I'm not the best shot at these, or any gun. Like, I can shoot, but I'm no 9-hole, review here. So I don't know how useful that would be. I would say my accuracy is probably a little above Michiko, but below everyone else probably. There is one video out there, if you're very curious about that and load your own ammo, that I just came across. So first of all, I was excited. So I'm like, I'm going to have the third video on YouTube on the LVS, because up until now, the only people that had videos on this was Forgotten Weapons, and Michiko. And neither one of them actually shoot it. Of course, what kind of feedback is Michiko going to give you? And I think the one that Ian did on Forgotten Weapons was actually a loaner from Marcolmar. However, Lacey, I can't remember if it's Lacey Firearms or Lacey Ranch or Range. I feel horrible now. I just subscribed to his channel. He beat me by a few days. So he got the third video up on the LVS. I do believe he bought one out of the last batch of these as well, because I've actually have spoken with him, whether he knows it or not, a little bit online. And the coolest thing about his video, you can tell he's a very accurate shot. I believe he loads his own ammo. So if that's kind of information you're looking for, definitely go check out his video. Once again, I will do my very best to put a link in my description to his video. And who else does a shooting video and goes, oh, hey, there's a buck, and then comes back after dropping the buck? I'm not even making that up. It's freaking awesome. Anyways, so this will be the fourth video on the LVS. Once again, no shooting stuff from me. Oh yeah, and I don't think I mentioned the mag this comes with. So obviously it does come with a mag. It is a Duramag Speed C Products. I feel like in my videos I always call C Products C-Spec. I just think that's from my days of playing Gran Turismo way too much. I don't know. But yeah, C Products mag. Those are good mags. People will bash on these for the mags. I bring this up all the time. Mags are not a freaking issue at all. I do know the Hill and Mac ones, from what I've seen, seem to have been a little picky, even on this Stenag style mags. The Marcolmar builds, as long as you're using an American-made Stenag mag, you're good to go. I do have a Korean mag here that will work in both of my Gen 2s. That is one of the mags I actually took out with this. My Gen 1, the bolt won't close on it. It's one of the modifications they've done to the Gen 1 and Gen 2. They put in little relief cuts for the Gen 2 to work with a wider range of mags. No, you can't use P-mags, or Magpul mags, excuse me. But that's not the only company that makes them. Lancer mags work just fine in this if you're dead set on getting a polymer mag. And I think First Amendment, their first gen mags work, but these are cheap and they work just fine. Like, people always say that these metal Stenag mags are garbage, and they're really freaking not. Anyways, let's see. I think I've gone over all my notes for this scope. So, a few other things I wanted to show you guys. One of the things I thought was neat, because like I mentioned, this was for the Spanish Marines, specifically their Special Forces, which is a part of the Spanish Navy. Now, if you watch my video on the bayonets for the CETME LV, there are basically 3 different versions of bayonet. The first version is going to be the pre-series, and you're probably never ever going to find one of those in the US, and they're not compatible with the full production Ls anyways. Then you will have the second gen. I thought I pulled it out here. I did not. It's built slightly different. Go watch my video if you're curious on that. But I do have this third gen here with the black scabbard, which indicates it's for the Navy. And then unfortunately these stampings are super light. Hold on, let me look off camera. Oh my lord, you can't even see that. In front of the serial number, Haziz light. We need more light. You can see the F, barely, and then barely see the N for the Navy marking there. So, technically, I do have the correct bayonet, as I hit you guys with the buttstock. And you guys, I mean microphone. So, in case you're curious, that's what she looks like. Which, I don't know why, but any bayonet that's above the barrel, I just think looks a little extra uber-duper cool. So, if you get one of these LVSs, I cannot remember where I got this bayonet from. I mean, it's immaculate condition. It was like unissued. Once again, go watch my video on it because I'm pretty sure I do mention it there. And shout out to Pointy but Not Sharp. He's the only other guy that I've seen on YouTube that has a video going over the bayonets. Now, when I got this, one of the big concerns I had was, what am I going to do about the scope? Which is 3-position adjustable. I'll go over to that in just a second. I was like, am I going to be taking this thing off and putting it in that styrofoam box every time? Because I really don't want it to get messed up, even though people say it's a tank. And then I remembered, what was it? It's one of the Tom Clancy movies with Harrison Ford. Anyways, American guy ends up saving some royal family. But there's like some British guards, like royal guards there. And they come out with their SA-80s. And I want to say they had this kind of rubberized looking cover over the scope. And if you ever watch any of those YouTube videos, you know, like I think they call them the beef eaters, like going off on tourists for, you know, getting too close or stuff like that. They will always have these covers on their SA-80. So I'm like, those got to be available. So I hopped on to eBay. And they are. I'm going to have to put this on off camera. This... sorry guys. This particular cover, let me straighten you back out, kind of fits. I ended up finding 2 covers. This cover is what they called, I want to say like Special Forces cover or Parade cover. But it's basically if you should go visit England, or if you're from England or London, you will see them around the palace. And they typically will have this cover on there, which those are going on bullpups. This obviously is not a bullpup, so it fits a little funky, but it fits. It's kind of like a rubberized treated nylon or something. I'm not sure what that is. I don't want to say it's padded, but it's a little bit thicker. It's a little thick. A couple layers in there. Velcro's on, kind of goofy, as you can see. But it does work. So there's that. And you can get them new, or new old stock, or used. This is a new old stock one. I can't remember how much it cost me, but it wasn't terribly expensive. And then there's this one. And as far as I can tell, there's not really a front or back to these guys. This one kind of matches the CETME LV a little better. But the material isn't quite as thick. It doesn't seem like it's waterproofy as much. But then we got this little green canvas guy as well. And this one was a little bit cheaper. Like I said, maybe $35 with shipping and handling. Of course, when I ordered these, I think the American dollar compared to the British pound was pretty healthy. So I might have been able to get a little bit cheaper than they normally are. If the pound comes back, they might end up being more expensive for you. I don't know. But I got that guy too, which I thought looked pretty cool. Let me get this off. And like I said, the owner of Marcolmar is in a whole bunch of gun groups online. It's not uncommon, you know, if you see someone sharing a picture of a CETME LV to see him pop up in the comments. Half the time, I don't think people have any clue who he is, which is kind of funny. Some of the comments I can see people asking, I can tell they have no clue who he is, which, I mean, why would you? But I posted some pictures with these covers on there, and he commented, and he was just like, dude. So I'm assuming he didn't think about looking into the SA-80 SUSAT site cover. So I was like, yeah, eBay. So I imagine he probably has ordered some. But like I said, this is 3-position sight. Whenever you see pictures of these, you will most often see it in this position. And actually, this is kind of a 4-position sight. This is in the middle position. When it's in the middle position, it kind of has a forward spot, which is where it's at right now, or a rearward spot. Or is this in the back position? Hold on. So to take it off, are we framing it? You just loosen these wing nuts here. And then you get this little tab here. It's kind of stuck sometimes. There we go. But there's the bottom. See, it's just got a little post there. And then this section of rail just clamps down. But here is our SA80 rail. That's what, oh lordy. Keep tipping you guys over. So it definitely looks kind of goofy with the scope off. Also, it's kind of interesting how this goes over the back of the buttstock a little bit. I find that interesting. So, I believe that if the post was right here, that would be your rearward position. Post was up here in this little cup. That would be the middle. And then up here, that would be the forward. However, the position I just had it in, that post was actually back here. So, there we go. That is the rearward. The most rear position. As you can see, it's pretty far back. Also, I didn't mention, I should have. These scopes are designed for you to pretty much put your brow right against that cover. Now, the SA80s do not have a lot of kick to them. These, I would say, have even less. When I first took this out, that was too far back for me. Also, it's also worth noting I've never used a gun with an optic, so I'm not really the best person. Oh. Come on. You know what? Wonder if I put it on. I think I might have been wrong. Oh, blast. Okay, yeah, see, that's your middle position. Forward, seated into that cup. But if you pull it back, it's right there. And originally I did have it in the... So, yeah, I was wrong. I was thinking it came back a little bit further. So the first time I took it out shooting, well, the only time... Oh my lordy. I did have it positioned back, which looked goofy because it looks like it's not on all the way. But as you can see, the clamping section, which is on this side, is completely on the rail. In this position, I had great visibility, but whenever I'd fire it, this would just, it didn't really hit my glasses. It was just kind of like it just barely rubbed up against my eyeglass frame. And after about the second mag, it just got annoying. So then I moved it up into the rear of the middle position, and this was perfectly good for me. See, they're just forward in the middle position, and I do not know why, but for the love of me, I cannot get it up here. You can see there's no marks. Oh, there we go. Nope, that's not it. That's the middle one again. Which isn't a huge deal for me. Because I won't be using that forward position. That's just way too far forward for me. Oh, I'm messing up the flag here. Man. Sorry, Spain, for getting your flag all funky. So yeah, those are your positions on the scope. I have to play with that more. I'm not sure if I've ever gotten into that forward position. But the middle rearward position, it does work good for me. My eye is up close enough to that, and it doesn't touch my eyeglasses at all. Okay, so think I've gone over everything. Oh yeah, I was going to do a trigger pull test. Now, my last video, was it the one on the Madison Firearms Furniture? I went ahead and did a trigger pull test on the LC. People talk about how horrible these triggers are. My L trigger, I know, is lighter than my LC trigger. And what did the LC trigger come in at? Like 8 pounds? I think it was like in the 7 pounds, 16 ounces. No, 16 ounces is a pound. It was just shy of 8 pounds. But the LC hasn't been shot as much as the L. This guy is practically brand new. Like I said, I have shot it some, but not a whole bunch. So I was going to show you guys what the trigger pull is on an almost brand new Marcolmar L. Another thing I just thought of too I should bring up as I hit everything in sight is my L. This safety is a total pain in the butt to operate. And when I got this, that's one of the first things I noticed is, oh, I can actually operate this. You know, it's not that bad. And then I pulled out my LC, and I don't know if that one just loosened up with use or I just didn't make the realization, but the LC is also got a very soft, unstiff safety. I don't know if that's maybe another modification they did between the Gen 1 and the Gen 2. That is a difference there. Or for whatever reason, the safety on my standard L is just really stiff. That is one thing I see people bring up a bunch as well. So, we are empty. Try to get it on screen here so no one thinks I'm up to any tomfooleriness. Clear. If I can remember how to use this. Are we in camera? What? 5 pounds, 15 ounces. Holy hell, that's lighter than my L, I'm pretty sure. Maybe that was just an anomaly. Let's see. £6, dead even. Now I will say, not to brag, but when I was talking to Dave, right after I had got this, he had mentioned to me, I did not hit ready. He had mentioned to me about how, let me wait for the mic volume to get back up, about how he had hand selected this one personally out of the last batch for me, which was also very cool. I don't know what was special about this one, but he picked it. 5 pounds, 11 ounces. Hold on, I'm going to do a trigger pull test off camera, because I do not remember it being... Okay, yeah, that's nice. Ready. Dude, 4 pounds, 10 ounces. This gun isn't broken in yet. Like, at all. People saying this has a 12-pound trigger pull. Shit. That felt... No. 5 pound, 4 point... How many trigger pulls was that? Let's do our... Averaging 5 pounds, 8.1 ounces. For a military trigger, I'll take that. I'll take it. Alright guys, I think that is it. Originally I was going to do this video, since it's a Spanish rifle with a British scope, I thought it'd be fun to do some kind of mix of like a Spanish accent with a British accent. But I just realized that was going to be horrible, because if you guys have heard my impersonations, they're pretty wretched. So I decided I'm not going to do none of that, governor. So I'm going to let you all go for your tea and crumpets. All right, cheerio. Don't forget to stay safe and stay shiny.